Welcome Wargamers, my name is Doug with 2 Plus Stuff, and if you are a big fan of the miniature wargaming industry, meaning you play lots of different miniature games, you may notice in the last few years that things have become more and more digital as we go on. For Age of Sigmar, which is something we cover mostly on this channel, we also have the companion app, if you haven't seen that, where it has like all the resources for the game. They have a subscription service where you can get like a list builder and all that kind of stuff. To a lesser extent, there is the 40K app, but then there's also apps for obviously other non-GW games. There's actually a fantastic one for my favorite one so far that I've seen in terms of resources is the Fallout Wasteland Warfare app, where it tracks every single aspect of the game, and it's incredible. But the thing about all these applications that are on your phone and make things very convenient for, obviously phone or tablet, is that they don't really broach much in the way of lore. A lot of them are resource dumps. There are libraries of information that are very easily accessible, which is great. But my question to you in this video is, what does the future of narrative gaming specifically look like when things go more digital? Last week, we spent the entire week talking about a supplement for Age of Sigmar called Broken Realms Bellicor. It was a fantastic book. I absolutely love where the story beats are going. But here's the thing, the model that they sell, Games Workshop sells these narratives, right? It's in a book, it has rule supplements, it's a hardcover book. That is very cumbersome. Like I have this shelf, the whole bottom row is just stacked with books down there for that exact purpose, is that these little stories all have to get printed. However, what if that went digital? More than just copy pasting the things that you write in your book and putting them online like a blog, what if narrative took on a new form because of the digital advancements that we have in this hobby? One company has done this, and it's actually one that I've gotten really excited about. I've been playing a new game called Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings. A few of my patrons told me they were really excited about it, so I thought I'd check it out, and it's been super fun. Here's the thing, they have a very unique way of doing their lore, and I wanted to share it with you because I think it's cool. I'm not trying to sell you the game, I just think it's really freaking cool, and it might be an indicator of where the industry might be going in the future. And so to kind of get a baseline, again, let's talk about the big dog in the room, GW. They publish a book, it has a very specific narrative in there. A lot of times it comes with rules to be able to play out the story of that particular release, that book. And then also a few tweaks in here, FAQs and that kind of stuff to kind of tighten up factions and probably raise them up a little bit. The positives for that are cool artwork. Usually, the last few Broken Realms books actually have not featured much new artwork. It's just old art reconfigured in different forms. The positives for that are also like game mechanic support, a way to rebalance things as things are moving forward. The downside being it's cumbersome. It has to get FAQ'd, and so it's not accurate anymore. When that book goes out of print, how do new people find it to be able to catch up on the story? Also, it's very cumbersome to have all the books that GW releases. But as I said, Parabellum, who makes Conquest, the game that I'm going to be talking about today, has a really unique narrative system, and I wanted to share it with you today. So here we are at the Conquest site, obviously Parabellum Wargames, and what I'm going to be clicking on is this thing called Living World. Okay, right now they're featuring their newest release. It's a faction called the Wadroon. It's like their version of orcs, and we get this cool map. Now, I actually shared this during a live stream one day. And I said like, oh yeah, it's cool because they kind of point some things out. However, I was very mistaken. You see, this is a map of one continent of the setting. It's called Aea for Conquest. And you have this little thing where it's active stories and exploration in the bottom right corner. Active stories is exactly what it sounds like. These are characters throughout their narrative that are making choices you and I get to participate in. If we go to exploration, more things open up. These are just known locations. It's like a little Google map unto itself. It's quite ingenious. Lots of little names for different areas, regions. You can see the borders and everything like that. If you want sheer information about the setting, this is what you do. Exploration. You literally explore everything. So let's go back to active stories. And we'll see a few here, okay? There are some that have color in their picture and some that are black and white. Let's go first to one with a color here. So we're going to get this here, and the page takes a bit to load, so I'll go ahead and throw that up there. We clicked on a character. This is Alacaneros. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he is basically a dwarven leader, and he was gives you a little bit of bio about him, and if you scroll down, it has a choice. Now, here's the interesting thing about the way that this functions. Each one of these little pips, these characters, is actively engaged in a story in their own campaign, and we as people who follow the lore have a chance to dictate how those choices are made. For the Wadrun, the new orcs, you basically give a kind of a bio of what they've been experiencing, and then you get the choice of saying, are we going to be peaceful when we come out to talk, or are we going to be aggressive? And that's essentially what that is. So you can actually choose where these heroes are going. Not only that, these pips, the little icons that represent them, they will move. They will move over time because those heroes are moving their armies. Now what's interesting is if you click on, say, one of the grayed out ones, you scroll down, you notice he doesn't have a choice, but he does have this 4 story bits. So here's what this is. If you want to get caught up on any character in the setting and how that they've reached where they're at, you start at the number 1, read the blurb, and then you see choice. This is what players like you and I chose for them. So there's a second one, and it kind of went on. Sometimes it skips a week. There's another choice, and it goes all the way to its current, which it tells you where he's at now, and then it freezes. It locks him in amber, right? So he's grayed out. He's not a contributing member. He is part of the active story because he's an important character. We need to know where he is, but he is not actively moving things forward. And so in this way, we get an idea of the setting, the major characters involved through all these stories. Each of these characters has like a short story and a bio and questions about their lives. They're moving across the board, and the way that they manage like this massive tree of options is that some characters, if they go to garrison a specific building or something, they'll just freeze. They'll get, like I said, locked in amber. They'll turn gray. There's no other decisions for them. We can catch up on what they're doing and what decisions brought them there, but they're not contributing. Whereas the ones who have the color outline on the border, those are the ones that we can vote on and kind of craft the narrative as we go. We can also remove people and locations. That one only works if it's exploration. But yeah, and I just think this is the coolest freaking idea ever. I like this because having the ability to gray out some stories and not others is really fascinating to me because it's like the camera is focusing from some stories going to others, right? And that's exactly what I want, where when we read narrative supplements and that kind of thing, really what it is when we read Broken Realms Marathi, it was just a camera that follows her for the most part. Same thing for Teclis and Nagash, same thing of course for Be'lakor. This is their way of doing that same thing. However, it can do several of these factions at the same time. So what's the point of all this? Well, the first one obviously is that whenever I find cool things, I share it. That's literally how this channel started. It was just me talking about things that I thought were cool. But more than that, I'm so into Conquest right now, it's ridiculous. I have a whole bunch of models I'm building. But it was just a unique innovation in terms of storytelling that I thought was quite impactful, and I would love to see other companies try something quite like it. When you buy a narrative supplement that's a printed copy, right? I won't pick on GW because lots of companies do who printed campaign books and that kind of thing. Really what you're doing is you're investing in that, and then the interactivity with the story comes from the ability to use special missions or narrative events that happen within that story, right? The interactivity is when you bring that story to the table. However, what they've done here at Parabellum is divorced the narrative from the interactivity you get from gaming. Okay, so like you don't have to recreate these battles that you read about online. You don't have to. There's no special rules to do that. However, the interactivity comes from being able to choose the way the narrative goes in a very fluid and freeform kind of way. So now the story isn't necessarily bound to the products or the experience you can have. It can be its own thing. It has its own level of interactivity. It can move, it can change. There's not really named characters per se in Conquest, so those heroes can die, and all these kinds of things, and all these narrative threads can happen independently because some are freezing at their current location, some are moving forward, and those are vice versa. They'll swap here and there about who's continuing the narrative forward. And by that, I mean, there's just so much to learn, so much to explore and do in this setting. I think it's really cool. Because I'm thinking about this, right? I mean, obviously, let's just be honest. On this channel, I talk a lot about AOS. I would have killed for like a thing like this website where I can be like, where's Gordrak? Boom, bring me every reference that Gordrak's had, have a bio about him, and then literally where is he at? Because he, to me, is the most interesting part of what's going on right now. He's like the wild card to me. That's what destruction is in my mind in AOS. So doing that, I would kill for that. That'd be so cool. And the fact that I can do that with literally all the major players who are active right now and the ones who are less active. So in AOS, what's a less active hero? I guess Tyrion, you know, we know he's around, he's spoken, had dialogue, but he's not doing a thing at the moment in the story. So that kind of stuff where it's like, man, there's so much to explore and do and learn about these characters, and this format is just, to me, the most exciting way to do it. And honestly, on a practical level, I just think about this as a business. It's a total win, right? How is this not a slam dunk? You have to actually vote in the story. People have to create accounts, I don't know. I mean, it's engaging an audience and a customer base right from their inbox. It's got a free-flowing narrative that doesn't box anyone in because the writers have control over what choices they offer you. So as long as they're thinking a little bit ahead, they can pretty much get in and out of any situation they want. And something like this builds hype organically, and that's what I love about it. And I'm trying to think of like what games specifically in my mind I think would benefit the most. Of the ones that I cover, Age of Sigmar and Wild West Exodus would do really well for this because they have named characters that are going places and directly influencing the setting. Infinity could be one, but that game, it's less about characters. Usually the characters in that game are like digital copies of something that existed before, so they really could be anywhere. They're kind of harder to track in that sense, but those are certainly games that can benefit a lot from this. So anyway, at the end here, I wanted to open it up to what you think. I'm going to have a link to the Parabellum website and the story arc thing down below. It's a really cool idea, and that's what I wanted to stress in this video. Is I opened it up not just to you know, harp on how cool I think Conquest is, but the reason I did is because there have been such a flood and a glut of narrative supplements coming out for AOS and for 40K. I think back to, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, they had like the Psychic Awakening stuff, and we have the Broken Realm series, where it's just books on books on books, and each one of them's like $40, and it just stacks up. We're at a place where we can't play the games in them very much or very often right now because of the world the way it is. So something like this, where it's like, I don't need to pay $40 to engage with the story arc and the characters and the world, and I can do it while I'm sitting here at my desk painting and building models, I love it. And so I think that kind of thing is definitely going to be the future going forward. But I want to hear your thoughts, as always. Leave them in the comments down below, and I will talk to you there. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Happy wargaming.